Hello, my friends. This is Rick, and this is your seat at the table. And as you may have just noticed, I'm trying yet again another possible intro for my channel. It's always a work in progress. I think I get a little better each time I do it. So this is J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle Earth, and this is otherwise MERP, and this is the Warlords of the Desert, Iron Crown Enterprises, supplement number 8012, and I see it was produced in 1989, 4 years after I got out of high school. This is one of those. As modules go, it's more of an adventure, module than not a source book. But I like when, especially the way MERP handles this, and there are the occasional supplement adventure modules that don't work out the way majority of them do, and I voice it quite often when they do, and I pointed out this was one that works well and it did a good job. It covers an area of Middle Earth that is very vaguely known. We barely understand the concept of Far Harad or Harad or the Easterling countries from the novels and from the movies, because there's no reason for them to touch on. Tolkien's people did not go to the Far East other than in brief mention. I got a little bit of apple cider going on because this is that time of year for it. And you can get it pretty cheap, which is a good thing. So, what I like about this particular stuff is it introduces a section, yet another section of Middle Earth that is not covered in the mainstream. And from a game perspective, it gives us a broader understanding of why certain entities such as the Harridan, and the Easterlings and the Southrons and what have you act and behave in the way they do, because this is what you would be considered beta canon. It is a not quite fan based, but it's not official. What it's based off is as much official information from Tolkien's books, his notes, his letters to his son, etc., and so on. So, as usual for this system, we have the ability to adapt it to pretty much any fantasy role-playing game system you want to use. The modifications are pretty easy to do, and it doesn't take a whole lot of work. We've got a general overview of where this location is, and if you go from this map, it is way down there. There's the two maps further down if you could connect them. Quite a ways away from Umbar, right? And then we go from the adventuring into Bazishadar, the land of the Far Harad and its capital. Like any other Middle Earth's more exotic lands, have a number of characteristics was taken into consideration for role playing. Anyway, general information, very little known of the Far Harad before landing the Numerians. The Numerians they were far-ranging travelers and traders and explorers and eventually conquerors. And so they traveled the world, and once they discovered that not all human races had gone west, and many of them stayed in central and southern and eastern Middle Earth and didn't have or very little contact from the west and its influences of the first and second age. So this plays a distinct role, and those that they did have from the second age, it's usually not such a good view of the Western powers, and this continues into the Third Age, especially during a period of time when Gondor is at its peak in the Sea Lord era and things like this. So they would have had conflicts, and their political and social views are different from the West, which allows Sauron's agents to manipulate these fine people, because they're really not evil people. They're just different in their mindset. So we have politics in the Far Harad, the economy, both in the capital city and outside, because the capital city is dominated by economics, where it's trade and your word when you get further out into the desert and the hills and the deep desert, of course. Culture, the Harad, their appearance, life and death, attitudes and outlook, family life, language, social classes, the role of wealth, garb, diet, leisure, the capital city itself, various districts within it, guild halls, residence, caravan grounds, merchant quarters, tradesmen homes. Unlike most cities that are in role-playing games, right? The fort, surrounding lands. Then we get into some of the extra stuff. In this case, your characters are either involved in a embassy from the Prince of Dwarmoth, or are going to become run up against or in cohesion with, if that's how you play, if following the module itself. So we got the embassy for Harad, player characters and their role, prince's ambassador, important Southrons that you will encounter or will be competing against, or will be trying to thwart your the prince's intentions. The tangled streets of Azaradar, the tale of the travelers, the NPCs, the setting, Sailor's Court, the setting. Bozashadar is a city full of streets and alleys where almost any turn might bring the adventure to bring an adventure or even a real pearl to abandoned, inexperienced visitors. The adventures described in this section are limited, however, to the city's quarters, market, and entertainment districts. In the following paragraphs, several notable locations in these paragraphs, neighborhoods are described in detail. The thieves' hideout is a setting for the main adventure, found in section 4.4. The others provide to add color to the main adventure. So, it's an in-city adventure dealing with the local thieves guild, or some equivalent thereof, right? Not totally outside it. So we got our locations in their various rooms and settings and things like this. The Great Oasis, the Sevet Kovina. At night, the crowds filled the Seller's Court all day, moved the high road, across the high road into the quarter with the name meaning simply festival. The Sevet Kovina, or Seven Festivals. The name is well suited. You get the idea what the neighborhood's about and your encounters. So the task. This adventure, the first goals will be quite simple. They are bored and want the PCs are bored and want something to do. As the day develops, new challenges arise, and with any luck, they will be trying to simply survive the time by the time this is all finished. Addition to the fun of a shopping trip where they can be haggled out of their silver, adventurers may find the occasional brawl or lose their way in the streets. More importantly, they will be faced by the challenge of besting Despar's band and returning, the thieves, and returning their assigned mansion without provoking anger of their patron, the Lord Merzal, who is the Prince of Dwarmoth, would be an ambassador to the city. Aids, obstacles, encounters, so on and so forth. And then we have a similar encounter with bandits, except they're outside in the desert, and the desert surroundings, and some of the encounters. The stronghold of the Katedrala, which would be the bandits. There we go, and how you're going to defeat or escape or best your character's means, and so on and so forth. More setting, NPCs, so on. Southern hospitality. This is where we go out further to the desert and we come up against a desert oasis and some conspiracies to deal with the Lord who controls it, and can you save him, and without incriminating yourselves and becoming the scapegoats, and so on and so forth. Anyway, it's actually a very good adventure, and I've run it a couple times as a one-off, sometimes as a 2 or 3 session kind of thing. I guess I got some players who would like to play in Middle-earth, not necessarily want to play by the rule set, but usually using D&D rules, but this is the setting. That said, this is Warlords of the Desert. It's a very nice, well-rounded adventure module with enough information within it to open up another piece of Middle-earth that connects us to the bigger puzzle. So there you have it. Till next time, this is Rick.